Here I am busily trying to have a conversation with you. I forgot to turn on my audio. How crazy is that? But I'm not going to start again. No, why should I? So I was just done a post on our Child Protection Party YouTube page and also our Facebook page with regard to how young people are experiencing and perhaps not being managed very well their mental well-being while in lockdown. Worth having a look at. If you just want to jump to that particular page, feel free to do so. Also, I wanted to have a conversation with you about the state of our world, I guess, because at the moment, I think one could argue that things are in a wee bit of a mess. Not just coronavirus, which is ravaging probably every country in the world, and which here in Australia is the Delta strain is particularly damaging to us with 2 states now locked down and 2 territories locked down. And we are in continual state of anxiety about exactly where this virus is going and whether it will impact us. And we're very, very slow at getting our population vaccinated, not because of the anti-vaxxers, but because we have a shitty government who simply has decided that in their wisdom we'll just sit on our laurels and wait and see what happens, rather than initially going out and purchasing as many vaccinations as possible, or vaccines as possible. So this is where we're at. But the other concern, I guess, for me at the moment is Afghanistan. And there's a whole host of issues that sit around that should be concerning all of us. I think one of the primary concerns is that one of the questions that doesn't seem to be being asked, which probably should be, is should we have been there in the first place? And over the years, I've believed that we shouldn't have, that we in Australia should particularly not follow the United States wherever they go, because they're not all that smart and they do tend to lead us into conflicts where we shouldn't be. Vietnam War is a prime example of that, where we should never have been there in the first place. But lo and behold, we were. And we were there for many, many years. And the outcome was just as crappy, in a sense. Even though we weren't relinquishing those particular countries to the same sort of people, I guess, that are the Taliban. But, there were some principles in play around Vietnam, which were kind of different than now. I mean, back in those days, back in the 60s, there was this belief in the domino theory. So if you give one country up to the communists, the rest will follow. And I think that's a bit bizarre given the way we now view China, a communist country, is that they have become the dominant force in the region and around the world in many ways. So the domino theory hadn't taken place as it was anticipated, where it would sort of sweep its way through Asia and then down into Malaysia and then across to Indonesia and then down into Australia, is what the fear was. But that never happened. But we have, and the Chinese are the ones that have found a way to become the industrial heavyweight within the region and around the world. So the things that we feared initially didn't really take shape in the way that we had anticipated that they would. But in Afghanistan, the issue had always been around preventing any further terrorist attack as a result of Osama bin Laden and his crew. So, and we've kind of eliminated them to a large extent. There are pockets of them somewhere around Afghanistan and nearby neighbours, but we haven't been able to. And we haven't eliminated them completely. But the Taliban are a completely different kettle of fish. The thing that interests me about when I was thinking about Taliban the other day was that when we first went there, it was 20 years ago. So the people primarily, I guess, that are fighting were either very young or not born back then. And I do wonder whether the principles of the principles that the Taliban held back then are still the same extreme principles that they hold today. And I was watching a report where they were saying that that in some pockets, some of the warlords were permitting women to still participate in their communities differently than what they did 20 years ago, that they were still allowed to be educated, that they had specific roles within the community which they wouldn't have had 20 years ago. And so maybe there has been some change in the way they think. Maybe in their own sort of way, they have been kind of progressive, even though one would doubt the degree to which they would be completely allowing women to be freely partaking in the community in terms of the way they dress and the way that they're treated by men and so on. So there's lots of things that I think we need to consider. Was it a failure? Probably not. If you consider that we shouldn't have been there in the first place, how could it possibly have been a failure? The failure was that we went there. The fact that we stayed so long was a failure. Was it inevitable that what has now happened, the Taliban have taken over the country, was that inevitable? Probably. Did we expect it to take place as rapidly as it did? No, I don't think people did expect it to take place as it did. And I think the people that were probably the most surprised by that were the Americans. And the reason why that happened was that they did not know, ostensibly, that the Afghan people probably have had enough, had just had enough. And that all this effort, and I don't understand this though, that if the effort had gone into training Afghan soldiers to defend their country, and then the Afghan people themselves have chosen not to, why didn't the CIA and other intelligence agencies know that that's what they were thinking and that was likely to be the outcome? I suspect that at some level they must have known that the Taliban would eventually take over. They just didn't know that it was going to happen in the space of time that it did. So what are we doing about getting those people in Afghanistan who have helped us, who have worked with the troops and the forces in Afghanistan? What are we doing in order to make sure that those people are safe? Well, I hope that we just send in plane after plane after plane, and we get them to our country, to the US, to European countries, just get them away so that we can at least say at the end of the day that we've saved a few 100,000 lives, rather than allowing people to stay and get butchered because they helped countries like us. I know that there are lots of people, and I guess we don't know this yet, but there are lots of people who will remain, who, for varying reasons, because they take a completely different political view, maybe, that they will be targeted. If you're ever a member of any of the parliamentary organisation, any of the parliamentary bodies within Afghanistan, you're likely to be punished. There were a number of women who participated in those parliaments. Have they had the opportunity to escape? Are there going to be people that are going to stay because they believe that that is their right to stay and to at least present a point of view to the Taliban about the way they want their country to be governed? Are the Taliban prepared to allow other people to talk to them about forming a government that is a little bit more diverse than just the Taliban themselves? So there's lots of questions, I guess, that at this particular point we don't know. But I'm hoping that there will be some sense of calmness about what will happen. That will mean that people don't get slaughtered, children don't get slaughtered, and that women and children, to some extent, may feel safe. We can only hope, I think, that that's what's going to happen. So if you like our channel and you want to have listen to more and more of these rants about myself and conversations about some of these issues, please subscribe and ring the bell and do whatever you need to do to let us know that you're interested in being a part of these conversations. So thanks very much for being with me, everybody. Take care, look after yourself, and at the end of the day, make sure that you're safe. Thank you.